Hey everybody, welcome to the 30-point project for loops, otherwise known as the final loops. Now, at this point you should have completed the Fruit Loop program. If you had any problem whatsoever with that, then I'd suggest you go look at the solution, build it again. Because if you cannot do the Fruit Loop, you will not do this. It's just not going to be possible. Because this is the Fruit Loop program nested in itself. So basically you're going to take the Fruit Loop program, and for every time, if you remember, there were apples, there were pears, there were oranges and peaches. If I choose apples though, in this example, I'm going to bring up a whole menu that's essentially the Fruit Loop. And I'm going to add things on that. If I go backwards, it should take me back to the main menu, which is this one here. So if I hit fruit, there's fruit menu for me to choose from. And I'm going to stay here until I'm done and I choose back. When I go back, I'll come back to this. I'll choose vegetables, it'll take me to the vegetable menu. And I hit back, it'll bring me back to here again. And each of these is going to do the same thing. There's a snack menu when I choose 3, and I'm going to be stuck on the snack menu, basically doing the Fruit Loop, except with snacks instead. When I hit back, I come back here. And of course, if I hit fruit again, it brings me back to the fruit menu. I should be able to go back and forth. Now, the shopping list is going to take all those things we've been tallying up and give us a nice little summation of how much everything costs. Usually at this point, I get some people, well, how do I do that? Look at program 1, the Fatty Burger program. Or whatever the program happened to be. Actually, it would be either a Fatty Burger program. I think there was also a toy program. But the very first program we did had math in it. Well, you multiplied this times that, and you got a price. And then you added all those totals up, and you got a grand total. You're doing the exact same thing here as you did in that first program. We're just making it look a little prettier. That doesn't have to look exactly like this, of course. All you simply have to do is just print things out. And to give you an example of how this kind of looks a little bit, I'll just create a new project here. Anyway. Yep. Okay, so all you really have to do in this case, I'll just use the print statements already here. I'm going to print like that. Now, of course, if I run this, move my thing here, I will get, of course, whatever happens to run. Let's see, there it is. And it looks exactly like that. But when you're dealing with like variables and various other things, it's honestly easier to line things up by doing this. And the /t, if I haven't mentioned it before, surely I have, is this. It's 5 spaces. So if I run this again, it makes 5 spaces. And I may have to, add an extra one here at the beginning or something, and then a one here, one there. Whenever you're dealing with the variables or something, this usually helps it line up better. If it's not perfect, don't worry about it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It would be nice if it was nice and lined up, but if it's a little off, that's okay. It's not a big deal. As long as all the totals and everything are here, that's what I'm mostly looking for. Well, anyway, how this roughly works. If you remember the Fruit Loop, what we had to do, right? We had, some variables for counting. We had our loop variable. And then we actually had, the loop until, end or typed or whatever we wanted for that matter. And then inside there, we printed the menu, asked for input. If input is 1, we print whatever apples or whatever, right? That's basically what it was. Now, The difference here is we're doing all those exact same steps. You're going to need variables for counting everything. You're going to need a main loop variable here. I say main loop because there are multiple loops here. You have your main and then a sub loop inside, which are the fruit, vegetables, snacks, and so on. Our main loop project here is going to be like the main loop. It'll be just like how the fruit loop was. You can call it main loop if you want. It doesn't really matter what you want to call it. We're going to loop until, I believe, 0 is what I called out for exit in this case. So loop until that is 0. Right. Now, I'd print the menu, I'd ask for user input, and that input's going to be that main loop variable. If the input is 1, guess what we're going to do? Subloop variable, since all our counting are going to be done up there. We're going to loop until the subloop is 0. We're going to print a menu, ask for input, if statements. And inside the if, it would be basically, if I choose 1, that's apples, right? Apples. And the same would be true for, whatever the other fruit was, peaches and pears in this case. 2, 3, 4. Now, if I choose 2, well, I'm going to do this exact same thing except with my next list here, vegetables. If I choose 3, I'll do the exact same thing here. So if you want to look at order of operations here, if you can make it this far, the rest of it is almost identical. If input is 2, same as above. If input is 3, same as the above. In that case. And this is a good little checklist for you to go down. Well, I did this one, I did this, and just start checking it off as you go down. And of course, there's 4. If input is 4. That's printing the shopping list. So here, you're going to want to do math. And by do math, I want you to do what we did in that first project. Apples are 50 cents an apple. The number that you chose, 50 cents. You'll print this out. So basically, after you've got it all done, you'll do the math. That number times 50 cents is the apple total. 2 times 40 cents is the peach total. You'll just get all those totals. The grand total is all of them added together. And then you will print everything. That's it. That's essentially this. You're going to do the fruit loop. And then inside each if statement here, except for number 4, you'll do the fruit loop again, except with some different variables. So it's not overly difficult, but it is a lot more complicated than before. But if you did the previous one, you're doing the previous one just multiple times inside of each other. Now there does have to be a loop here. I'll often have people who will get here and they're like, oh, I can't really get the loop to work, and they'll just, once they get in here, well, we'll just do an if statement here instead. They'll pick apples or fruit, it'll go back to the main menu. That's not what I want. This has to have nested loops. So a while loop for the main loop, and then while loops for each of the individual ones. So that is the gist of the final loops. Of course, if you have any questions or problems, just message me and I will do what I can to help you out.